Hey there! Long week? Well, smile. This will be a great half hour of the program today, half of the show, in which you can listen, you can learn, and you can just tune out some of the other noise that you hear throughout the week when you watch the news. It's been a bit crazy. Anyway, I'm Leslie Marshall. Welcome or welcome back. Only true democracy and talk. We have with us, very glad to have with us, Jeff Padellaro, not Laro, like from Boston. Jeff Padellaro, director of the Teamsters Brewery, Bakery, and Soft Drink Conference. He's been a Teamster for nearly 40 years. Founded back in 1903, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters represents 1.3 million hardworking people, not only in the United States, but in Canada and Puerto Rico as well. Visit teamster.org for more information. Be sure to follow them on X at Teamsters and at Facebook at facebook.com/Teamsters. Director, do you prefer Jeff, Director Padellaro? Do you prefer Mr. Padellaro? What do you want to be called?
Jeff is fine. Thank you.
Oh,
Thanks for
that's good
having me.
because my Boston accent is going to come out in your last name, so it works out better that way. Jeff, thank you for joining us. I know you're busy. Thank you for taking the
Glad
time.
to be here. Thanks for having us.
Well, let's start with a great state that I've lived in. I lived in the city of Chicago for 4 years, and that is Illinois. But let's start with what's happening there in Illinois. More than 100 Teamsters at Breakthru Beverage in Cicero walked out on strike. So I know it's not an easy decision to do that, right? I mean, it is a sacrifice
That's
when
right.
workers do that. It is the
That's right.
last. It's the last straw, right? It's that ace up your sleeve you don't want to have to pull out. So what was it that pushed these workers to the point where they felt we have no other option here but to strike? What led Breakthru Beverage and Cicero to this walkout, to this strike?
So breakthrough, like a lot of bad employers, breakthrough just did not come to the table, in my opinion, did not come to the table looking to cooperate, looking to compromise, looking to recognize their employees, our members, for what they bring to the table and making them as successful as they have. Uh, this group of people, and in this particular case, it's Cicero, but we've also got two other units that are on strike as well because the company can't come to the table and negotiate a fair deal. And while negotiations appeared to be moving along, at the 11th hour, the company had agreed to things and then removed them, issues that were near and dear to the union, to the membership, and it was bad faith bargaining all the way around. So they really left us no alternative. We talked to the members about what was going on, and then the company put itself on strike.
Yeah. Well, you have said this isn't just about wages. This isn't just about benefits. It's about the company trying to strip workers of their right to honor Teamsters picket lines. So, first of all, why is that protection so important, not just to unions, but to the hardworking people in those unions and to working people?
The fundamental right to honor a picket line, I mean, that is foundational stuff in the Teamster world. We support our sisters and brothers when they make the decision to withhold their labor because an employer is being unfair. Breakthru Beverage is relatively new company. They've been around, half a dozen years, 10 years, and they don't they don't want to recognize that through COVID, our members carried them. Our members showed up every day, did the job. They make this company successful, and our members respect the job that they do, and they absolutely 100% have unity and solidarity to fight for the best contracts that they not only deserve, that they want to see, to provide for their families, to protect, preserve, and improve the working conditions. And that's across the country. So the company, the company's attack on our ability to be able to honor a picket line, that's a big deal. That's the company saying, listen, we don't really care. If you're not going to do the work, we'll move it to another location. These products, the wine and spirits, these are not really perishable goods. And the company's overall threat is, well, If we can't do it in Cicero in this case, then we'll do it somewhere else and we'll just move the work. And there's no loyalty to the people, their employees, our members who got them there. So the only, like you said, at the end of the day, it's a last resort. The people withhold their labor. We've been talking to this company for years about recognizing our members, their employees who show up to work every day, who do a great job, who make this company the success that it is. And, thankfully, under the direction of our general president, Sean O'Brien, and general secretary treasurer, Fred Zuckerman, we have the resources to fight back on this. In prior years, no such luck, but our general president, our general executive board, general secretary treasurer, they give us the resources to do this. And, the company cannot squeeze our members because we have the resources to make sure that they're okay. And, the company is attacking this most fundamental civil right to be able to, take to the streets and withhold your labor so you can get a fair contract.
Yeah, I have to say, both my grandfathers were union members. One was a shipyard laborer in Brooklyn, and the other one was a sheet metal worker. And I remember being taught, I swear to God, as young as 4 or 5, you do not cross a picket line. I mean,
Absolutely.
I mean, there's just certain things you stop at a stop sign, right? You do not cross,
That's right. Absolutely.
a picket line. And it's almost like these corporate, these greedy corporate heads of these corporations isn't it bad enough you're attacking wages and benefits and pension and healthcare and vacation time and this too, or collective bargaining rights or this too. It's sort of like where does it end? Where do they give it up? When do they give it up? The union Teamsters has called this an unfair labor practice strike. Now, people listening who may not know exactly what an unfair labor practice strike means, what unlawful behavior is the company doing here? What is unlawful about this?
So the company is threatening their employees, our members. They're telling them they can be replaced. They're direct dealing with the employees. They're trying to threaten non Cicero employees, our members, that if they do honor a picket line, notwithstanding the fact that they've got language in their contract that allows them to honor a picket line, they're threatening them with being replaced, losing their jobs, and all of that's illegal. It's like this company is taking on a tone of, the heck with freedom of speech. Nobody has the right to honor anything other than, the mandate that they set forth, and it's just not the case. We have some history. We struck this company about a year and a half ago, very similar circumstances. It was about a 6-month strike, and until the company, got wind that the National Labor Relations Board was about ready to rule against them, they didn't, they continue to try to violate our members' rights. They continue to try to, withhold a reasonable contract. And, here we go again.
You have been a Teamster for nearly 40 years. That's a long time. When
Yep.
companies go after protections like this, what message does that send to workers, not just in your position, but in your experience as one of those workers for nearly 40 years as a Teamster?
Well, that's when communication is key. The company would have people believe, well, it only affects the employees in Cicero, or it only affects, the people, at this location or that location. And that's not the case, because the company has already said, we need this, we need to take this away from the people in Cicero. And every contract that comes up that has protection language in there, the ability for our members to support each other, they're going to be willing to take a strike and do what they think they need to do. Now, it's no secret the CEO of Breakthru, he came from Cisco, where they had much the same tactics
Mm.
until, the Teamsters continue to do what we're doing here. Uh, and, they Cisco parted ways with him, and now he's doing the same thing at Breakthru Beverage, and he's going to meet much the same fate because we're not going away. We are strong. We are united. We will continue to support each other, and it's really up to them. We're ready to go back to the table at any given point. In fact, At one of these locations, the company said, "Yeah, we're all done talking until you tell us you're not going to strike," which is another unfair labor practice charge, which we have filed. And as soon as we struck, they said, "Well, wait a minute, let's start talking again." So we're trying to work through that because we'll always be willing to talk and work through things, but they need to offer a fair contract. They need to honor the law. And they need to negotiate in good faith.
Absolutely. Yeah. If you let a bully continue to bully, they'll continue. And like you said, not just in Cicero. We'll be back with Jeff Padellaro, director of the Teamsters Brewery, Bakery, and Soft Drink Conference. Like I said, he's been a Teamster 40 years. Speaking of Teamsters, follow them on X at Teamsters, on Facebook at facebook.com/Teamsters, and also check out the website, teamster.org, if you want to know more and maybe you guys want to unionize where you work. We'll be back right after this. We are back. Happy Friday. I'm Leslie Marshall. Welcome or welcome back. We're talking with Jeff Padellaro. He's director of the Teamsters Brewery, Bakery, and Soft Drink Conference, a Teamster for nearly 40 years. And the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, founded back in 1903, represents over 1 million hardworking people, not just here in Puerto Rico, in Canada. If you want more information, and you should get more information because their website has a plethora of stuff on there, folks, teamster.org. Follow them on X at Teamsters for even additional information, and their other social media site at Facebook, facebook.com/Teamsters. Jeff, thank you for holding Welcome Back. Well, from Illinois, let's go to St. Louis. Just days after the Illinois strike began, workers in St. Louis also walked out. So, Jeff, what does that say to you that workers in different cities are facing many of the same issues with the same company? Somebody's getting on the phone and saying, this is how we think we can screw them over. You should follow suit. Is that what's going on?
Well, it's the same playbook. Excuse me. It's the same playbook, just in a different city, and it's as you can see, it's had the same outcome. It's a tired old playbook, of screw the workers, don't recognize what they bring to the table. In St. Louis, there's two units. One is a first-time Teamster contract. Oddly enough, they saw what the Teamsters were able to accomplish during the strike in 2025, and they organized during that strike because they got tired of being pushed around and they saw the Teamsters standing up for their membership. Now, nobody goes out looking for a strike, but it's the same playbook that the current Breakthru CEO tried to implement at his previous company. It didn't work then, and it's not going to work now. The Teamsters are not going away. We're going to make sure the members' rights are protected. The General President O'Brien, General Secretary Treasurer Zuckerman have given us the support. The entire General Executive Board has told us whatever we need. This is a fight that we're going to win, and it's going to continue to expand across the country if necessary until this company comes to its senses and does the right thing.
In St. Louis, some of these workers, unlike some of the other cities, are fighting for a first contract after recently organizing. How important is that first contract fight? Not just for these workers in St. Louis, but for people who are organizing and their efforts to organize, unionize, and, for their first contract, nationwide.
It's very important. The organizing campaign itself is always difficult because you've got the company telling these people, the employer telling these people, "Oh, nothing's going to change. We're not going to change anything," and then lo and behold, they start trying to implement changes, and they can't do it just because they're now Teamsters. And to negotiate the first contract, you need to be able to at least what we do in the brewery, bakery, and soft drink division, what we do is we see what the area standard is. We see what the standards in the industry are. And that's what we look for. We look for in a first contract. We want to make sure that the people are treated equally, and that the companies are all held accountable to make sure the people are treated equally. And contract is only as good as what's contained in it, because companies like this want to take advantage and try to expose every loophole. The Teamsters have top-notch legal at our disposal to make sure that we protect our members' rights and make sure we hold the companies accountable. So this first contract is critical. In this particular case, we've got two local unions for two different units operating out of the same building. And, the first contract is supporting the members in the other contract and vice versa. Everybody's standing shoulder to shoulder. They're checking on each other, and everything and anything we could expect or anticipate they're doing textbook, because they know the Teamsters are behind them. They know that the resources are there to make sure that they and their families are going to be okay.
I never understand when you look at the Teamster track record. I mean, you guys win. I mean, you win and you're patient, you're tenacious, but you'll wait it out. I mean, you've been there, 40 years and I've
Yep.
been, connected with the Teamsters for less than that, but still, it's just even if it's like 6 years, 10 years, you guys win. If I were a company, you got to look at a track record of who you're sitting down at the table with, or who you're fighting with or trying to fight
Right.
against. The company has been surface bargaining and pushing regressive proposals. What do those tactics look like in practice? And how frustrating is that for workers trying to negotiate in good faith, which the workers are and the Teamsters are?
It's interesting you bring that up, because you sit across the table, you companies, in this case Breakthru, they apparently, it doesn't register for them that the proposals that we bring forward are from their employees, our members. They formed a union because they didn't believe that the company was doing the right thing by them. They wanted the assistance, they wanted the representation, they wanted the unity at the bargaining table to speak as one voice. And companies just, they try to say, oh, it's just the union doing this or the Teamsters doing that. And that's not the case. We speak for and on behalf of the membership, because the members are generally tired of getting pushed around and shortchanged by the company. So, the company puts X on the table, we tell them, yeah, that's not going to work, or the members tell them, yeah, that's not going to work. And then to do less than that doesn't make sense. It's surface bargaining. It's all designed to drag things on as long as possible.
That's clear.
Yeah.
There's been a growing wave of labor activism across the nation in recent years. Do you think workers are becoming less willing to accept those pressure tactics from these corporate heads and they're more willing to stand together?
Absolutely. You've seen a major uptick in organizing. You've seen a major uptick in strike activity. You've seen a major uptick in militancy. Of course, in my opinion, it all starts at the top. And, our general president, our general secretary, treasurer are out front of every battle. I'm a little biased, but I believe that, they have redefined the labor movement in the past, 4 years plus. And, our members came through COVID. They did what they needed to do across the board to make sure that the goods and services were delivered. And now they're looking for their just rewards. They realized that, through COVID, everybody determined that our members, the vast majority of them, were considered essential workers. Well, now the essential worker tagline, a couple of years post-pandemic, it seems to have fallen by the wayside. And, these employers like Breakthru Beverage, they want to go back to business as usual the way that it used to be. And our members are not having it. We've set, our leadership, our Teamster leadership has set an example. They've said, you deserve better and you're going to get better, and we're going to make sure that you get it, and we're going to help you get it. We need you to, show unity and solidarity. We need you to hold up your sisters and your brothers. And if we all stick together, there's nothing we can't accomplish. And that's what's going on today.
Just because there's no more pandemic doesn't mean you're no longer an essential worker. You're still essential,
Exactly.
right?
100%. Yep.
Yeah. But now, for people watching these strikes from the outside, what's the biggest misconception about unions and about workers and why workers strike?
My opinion is, when you have people who say, well, the union shouldn't do this or the union shouldn't do that, they're trying to attach the label union, quote unquote, to some mystical third party, behind the curtain, when the fact of the matter is the union is the membership.
Right. The
And
workers.
that's what people who talk like that, they don't understand that the union is the members. The union is the group of employees who came together and said, you know what? We deserve better. We've got CEOs out there making millions and millions and millions of dollars, and then they want to say, sorry guys, we really can't afford to do this, we really can't afford to do that, we can't give you good health care, we can't give you a good pension, here's 25 cents, and don't spend it all in one place. And like I said, business as usual is not acceptable anymore, and the Teamsters are driving that standard up, and our members are supporting it 100%.
Have you been a part of a strike in your 40 years in the
Oh,
Teamsters?
sure. Sure.
Okay. So that people understand, because you've been there as a
Yeah.
worker, it's not a positive strike. I mean, it's a positive as far as, you've been pushed to your limit, and here, this is what we're going to do. We're going to have to walk out. We're going to have to strike. But explain to people, when you're striking, what's that look like to you as a worker? Where are the negatives for you as a worker? Sorry, less than a minute. I asked this loaded question, but go ahead. I know you can do it, Jeff.
No worries. It's nerve-wracking because you're making a decision that is potentially a life-altering decision. You're withholding your labor, which means that calls into question a lot of things. You're saying, I'm putting it all on the line because this issue is worthwhile to do it, and it's for the benefit of my family, it's for the benefit of my working conditions, and it's worth it. And if you stick together, it's worth it.
Thank you. Jeff Padellaro, director of the Teamsters Brewery, Bakery, and Soft Drink Conference, a 40-year Teamster. Check out the Teamsters website. There's a lot of information. Maybe you'd like to become, part of them, or find out more about what they do. Teamster.org. And they just span so many different industries now. It's amazing. Teamster.org. Follow them on X at Teamsters and on Facebook at facebook.com/Teamsters. I'm Leslie Marshall. Have a wonderful weekend, everybody. A shout out to Marky Mark Grimaldi, my executive producer. And everybody be safe and start to enjoy the good weather that's hopefully coming everyone's way.